It's 7 p.m. on October the 23rd. This is the Jamaica Selectboard meeting. Thank you all for coming. The first order of business on the agenda is to call for any late additions to the agenda. We've had a couple already, so let's.
Is there talking about the town hall on there?
No,
We had talked about, and I called Judy, and we had talked about access to the town hall, and Pat's supposed to be here with a list of things which we'd like to propose that potentially that we worked on at the town hall.
Sure.
Actually,
My understanding is that.
I agree with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Well, Pat has that list.
That was discussed earlier today.
Okay.
And we'll talk about, if you want, we can.
Yeah, I can hear more.
Because that wasn't, let me get to that. I'll put you down to discuss what we're gonna discuss or something.
Thank you.
All right. You don't mind if I just write your name in here instead of that whole thing you just
No,
said?
you can just.
That's good.
That's perfectly fine.
Thank you, good.
I also
And you have something?
Yes, I want to talk about something with Wyndham Solid Waste program that they're having, that it's important.
Okay. We're going to have a lot tonight.
I know, but
Put you towards the
this
end.
has a time frame,
Okay.
and I only learned about it Thursday night at
Okay.
Wyndham Solid Waste meeting. I knew you were gonna say that.
Well, I've been squeezing things in ever since I did the agenda, so we've been a lot of additional things here.
Well, I think we're paying the price for not having a meeting the first of the month.
Or other things. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is at the end of the session tonight, long after you guys have fallen asleep and gone home, we're gonna have an executive session for a personnel matter. Veda has asked, where'd she go? There she is. We had her down for the town plan hearing date on the 14th. She sent me a letter with some other things. We may not be able to get to all of them, but I'm gonna move you up into further up to get that done. Tom's got something, Judy's got something. Anything else? Good. So, next order of business, approve the minutes of the September 25th Select Board meeting. I circulated, I did actually. Pam circulated all these things electronically. Has anybody not had an opportunity to read over the minutes from September the 25th? I have two very tiny little things. I know it's unusual. If you go to page 2 on number 7, second line, Wyndham Solid Waste will hold the coverage, but the town is held responsible. Will hold what coverage?
I don't remember, you guys said it.
Coverage of insurance.
Insurance.
Yes,
Oh, the insurance coverage.
yes.
All right, that's a
Insert
good.
I
insurance.
just
Insert-
assumed that, I should have figured that one out myself.
Yeah, let's insert insurance. And the other one is down under number 9, BDCC, line number 4. The organizations are about the process of creating another I lost on that sentence.
I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Grab
Oh, sure
copy.
why.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're just surprised because this is the first time in
Yeah.
months I've had anything.
Sometimes when you proofread too much.
Sure.
Organization. Oh, yeah.
Number 9 on page 2.
Number 9.
Oh, their organizations, meaning BDCC and SEVEDS, are about to begin the process of creating another SEDS.
Okay.
Their organizations, meaning SEVEDS and BDCC, are about to begin. So to begin, not the being.
Okay. You're happy with that?
Yeah. If you're happy with that.
I'm so happy, it's hard to imagine how happy I am with that.
Are there any other corrections? Deletions? Additions? Whining? Oh. If not, I'd entertain a motion for acceptance of the September 25th minutes as corrected.
I move.
Have a move and a second. One of you guys want to divide it up?
Yeah.
Okay, let's call Joel the move and Judy the second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Let's do it together. Aye. Okay, good. Any opposed? No. They have passed. All right. Oops. The next order of business, excuse me, approve the timesheets for the town office, solicitors, highway, and transfer station. And number 4, sign the select board orders. We will accomplish those after you guys, I didn't watch this right, and we'll do that after the executive session tonight, before you go home. Number 5, we have been talking about this for some time, and we have, oh look, handouts coming. Pam has done some legwork, actually I think she was sitting down at the time, but a lot of telephone work to get some quotes on town office carpeting. Did I give you one? Give one here. And so she has here presented the quotes, commercial carpet tile, and I'll yield to Pam.
Okay. So I know the procurement policy asks us to seek out 3 quotes for regular purchases. I did contact WCW Carpet Warehouse in Bennington and also Knockout Flooring in Chester, and neither one of them got back to me. So I have, after months of talking to different places, I have Lawton out of Brattleboro and Manchester Flooring out of Manchester, who gave me quotes, and I think that hopefully that is enough for you guys. So broken down, the main office area is where Terry and I sit. And so we have Lawton's price, and then we have Manchester's price, but Manchester includes a furniture moving service and obviously a fee for that service, which Lawton does not. So the price is for a different, Lawton's price is just the carpet and installation. We would be responsible for getting the furniture out, which those desks and file cabinets and that kind of stuff is a lot. So I think it's something we need to consider. So I kind of broke out, I put Manchester's price and then I subtracted out what they're charging for the moving, so you can see what, compare with what Lawton is charging us for the carpet and installation. And it ends up that Manchester for each room is cheaper if you don't consider that they're gonna move the furniture and charge us for that. But I think it's easier for them to move it while they're installing than for us to hire movers or have the road crew come in and move our furniture out for us, just my
Am I reading this correctly? It looks like Manchester's cheaper even with the moving.
just for that first office area,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then the rest of them, they're a little more
Different.
expensive, but if you take out that moving charge, they're cheaper.
Gotcha.
So the main office area is where, like I said, where Terry and I sit, and then the reception area is when you walk into the town clerk's office to the counter, and then the little research area next to that. And then the lister's office is on here too, which needs it as well. Their floor is in really rough shape. And then I have the total, and then an additional option we had talked about was just right when you walk in the door here. But the floor's in good shape there. We can buy new mats. I'm not really concerned about that. I don't think it's necessary. And then that'll keep us under 5,000, which I think is what was budgeted 4 years ago when this project initially started. And so this money is coming out of the building reserve fund because it was budgeted 4 or 5 years ago and never used. It kind of just got put in there and is waiting to be spent. And attached to this spreadsheet is just the actual quotes themselves from Manchester and Lawton. So I don't know if you guys just want to discuss amongst yourselves or if you have any questions.
I know that both Lawton and Manchester brought in samples and stuff, and Terry kind of looked over the samples, and Manchester seems to,
He's quick.
he's quick at it, he brought everything, and the carpeting it's good carpeting.
Yeah, the Manchester quote is it's for the actual carpet that I picked out from the samples he brought, whereas the Lawton is a guess based on the average carpet tile price. And these are carpet tiles, so they're the squares, so that certain areas that get worn down more or something spills, they can replace just that square instead of having to,
Now, is that both companies doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this fastened to the floor, or they're just laid next to each
Oh,
other?
no, it's fastened.
It is.
Yeah. As far as I know.
I move we accept the Manchester Carpet Care Incorporated bid.
I second.
Okay,
Discussion, I'm trying to find a bottom line number for each.
on first page. Right here,
Where it says
the bottom line where it says total.
Total.
So that would
Oh,
be doing
okay.
the lister's office
Okay.
and our whole
Okay.
office, which I think is. probably
Including the
best idea.
furniture movement.
Including furniture movement. The big furniture, I'll have to move the computers and, you know,
Right.
papers and stuff, but they'll do the big stuff.
Thank you.
The only discussion I have is, I may be moving a little bit too slowly sometimes, but I thought we might want to move, do we agree that it needs to be done, we should do it, and then we can accept the bid, or can we just jump right in?
I mean, we knew it had to be done 5 years ago.
We've been
That's
knowing
all
about it, we've been
right.
talking about it, we
That's
never
all
actually
right.
told
Talked
them.
The
about.
asbestos tiles we're sitting on are breaking and cracking
Yeah.
every time I
Absolutely agree, is there any disagreement
Are
on
these
these?
asbestos tiles?
In where Terry and I sit, yes.
Yeah, do we have any information about references or quality of the two companies?
I know that Manchester does a lot of work up at Stratton, and I've heard from a lot of people that they do a great job, and the sales
There you
is awesome. I've also heard good things about Lawton. They've done the courthouse and some schools in
I
Brattleboro.
think they're both equal in.
Yeah, they,
In Manchester's
Okay.
defense on the pad last bid, Dom came down and the office was closed because of a snowstorm and
Okay.
never got rescheduled. So he did come down.
okay. Yeah, he's very nice.
How long ago was that? Was that
That's-
last winter or the
Been a
winter
while,
before?
if we've got snow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I work around those guys quite a bit, and that's not why I want them, I just never heard any complaints about Manchester,
Good.
having experience with a lot.
So we have a motion on the table, we've had a discussion, and I have a second. All in favor of accepting the Manchester bid as defined at 4605.95, including the moving of the furniture, which will make Keith very happy, but you don't have to write that into the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Ms. Pam, you get
Thank
new
you.
carpet.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Yes, good work,
So-
Pam.
No, it's just her, it's just Terry.
The next item on tonight's agenda is, I suppose most of you have heard, or if you haven't, you're about to hear, that our former chair, a couple of generations ago of the Jamaica Selectboard, moved on to bigger and better things, and he's now getting ready to move on to even bigger and better things by leaving Montpelier. And we have with us this evening Kelly Pajala.
Yep.
Did I pronounce it? The J is a
Yep, that's right.
who would like to introduce herself as someone who might be interested in accepting the nomination from the governor, I believe.
Yes.
You can tell us what you need to tell us.
Okay, well, I'm gonna stand, I guess.
Sure.
Because I feel weird having my back to everybody. So my name is Kelly Pajala. I'm the town clerk in Londonderry. I've been there for 6 years, and I was an assistant in Weston for 3 years before that. So I'm pretty well versed in the way municipalities run, and, you know, constantly keeping up with what the state is doing, or doing my best to. I'm honored, really, that Oliver even approached me to ask if this is something that I would be willing to do. It's something that I wanted to do later on in life. I have 2 children who are in the 4th and 5th grade, but I figured now's as good a time as any, and I have the opportunity to do something that might better the future for a lot of people in Vermont, and so I should do it now while I have the chance. That's not to say that the governor might not choose somebody else. It is his choice, but I have put my name forth to him and sent in my letter of interest. I'm a political independent, which is, I think, a good thing, given that Oliver was also an independent. And I'm here tonight to not only introduce myself, but to say, you know, my phone is nearly almost always on, and my door will always be open. So if people have any questions for me or would like to get in touch, please feel free. And if you all have any questions for me, I guess now is a good time, but I'm gonna try to be around more and start talking to people more, because I think the biggest resource for me, if I end up in Montpelier, is knowing what all of you are most interested in and think is most important. So,
Can I ask you a quick,
sure,
boring question?
go for it.
What's your education background in this direction?
My,
Educational background?
in government?
Yeah. Oh, anything, I don't care.
I went to Skidmore College,
Mhm.
and I was a women's studies major, which I sort of crafted my own what I did with that. I also have a small business, which is making children's clothing and quilts and household textiles. So I worked my degree into things surrounding the textile industry, which ended up being both sewing. I worked in a dress shop, but I also did a lot of reading and thinking and learning about the social aspects that went into the textile industry and women's lives and women's work. So that's my educational background, which I certainly use in my small business. But my parents started dragging me to community events, and my mom was on the school board when I was a kid, and so I feel like that was something that I learned
By osmosis.
by osmosis. And I've certainly learned through my work life, you know.
How long have you been on the town clerk, you say?
6 years.
6 years. Before that, you were in another town.
I was an assistant in Weston before that, and I grew up in Weston.
So you've got a pretty good grasp of that job.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
They keep bringing me back, yes.
I have a question. In government now, do you have any kind of favorite focus, or what is your particular interest that you might be focusing on a little bit more than other things?
I think in terms of our district specifically, how we can attract and keep young people here. And I think that that's a lot of things feed into that. So the education system being one of those things, and how we can develop this area as more than just a ski area is one of those things. And finding ways to use the natural resources that we have here as attractions is important to me, just because those are things that I enjoy. And making it affordable for people to live here full time. This is an amazing place to live and raise a family, and keeping people here is challenging at best, and that I think that's, you know, as I look to my family's future, that's what is important to me.
Thank you. Excellent. Any
Can
others?
you talk about your thoughts on education and whether or not you've been involved in education?
Before we get too far down that road, I feel really bad because I didn't brief her on doing a question and answer with everybody, because it was just supposed to be an introduction. Do you really feel like you want to answer these questions? Do you want some more time sometime?
Well, I do plan on being in town. Again, I'm trying to set up a day to come and be available for people to ask questions. Karen was trying to set something up, and I'll try to set something up on my own if need be. I don't want to take up too much of your valuable meeting time, because I know these meetings can be lengthy. I'm happy to take questions, but it's also...
We're breaking you in.
It's
For what's
yep,
ahead.
yeah.
So you're going to have another meeting for us all to sit down and get these questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that okay with you if we can wait, give her some more time to do it?
Sure, Paul.
I feel bad, I didn't brief her, we're going to do this.
I don't mind answering questions, but I do plan on being in town and making myself available at other...
Are you going to set up a website so that with your thoughts?
Yes. I'm trying not to put the cart too far before the horse, and those are things that I'm working on, but until I get appointed, I'm aware that it is not ultimately my decision, and and I do hope that if anyone else is interested, you know, I think anytime anyone wants to get involved at any level in your community, you know, jump at the chance. So I'm jumping,
Good.
but if there are other people jumping as well, then I think that that's only healthy for our community. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna stay for a few more minutes because I want to hear.
We're that
your
entertaining,
takes.
are we? This will teach you. We have, next on the list is, we have, as most of you recall, been looking at the question of water supply for Jamaica in a fashion that would, with any luck, kind of boost the business potential of the town. And we've had 2 presentations already. Tonight we have a presentation from the Otter Creek Engineering to speak to the potential cost for the study to find out the potential cost. Basically, we're trying to find out how much it's going to cost to find out how much it's going to cost. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves and you're on.
Thank you, thank you. I'm Mark Youngstrom, obviously from Otter Creek Engineering. This is Craig Jewett, we both work out of the Rutland office. The main office is in East Middlebury, so there's 2 offices. We work statewide. So what I can do, I know you have a tight agenda. What I'd like to do is just maybe walk you through the little package that we presented to you, and then you can read that and ask questions as you wish. And we'll get you a real question here quickly. As you flip through, there's an introduction which basically just tells you a little bit about the firm. We currently are 16 people, and going into our 20th year. We're engineers and hydrogeologists. 2/3 of our work is in municipal water supply. Always has been throughout history. That's the mainstay of our work, projects just like this. And we also do surveying and lots of other types of civil engineering, but this is what we do. This is our mainstay. Flip the page. This is a list of projects that we've done recently that have developed water supplies. In other words, wells, groundwater supplies. To jump ahead a little bit, a project like you're anticipating is something that we have done several times. Many times we're involved with upgrading existing municipal supplies. Big projects from $500,000 to $6 or $7 million of upgrading a municipal water system, whether it be water filtration or water mains or storage or something like that. But on 4 occasions, we've actually created water systems from virtually nothing, and those I'll come into. Some of these are those where we've developed new groundwater sources, anywhere from just a few gallons a minute to 1,000 gallons a minute. And obviously you'd be looking at a groundwater source for this community. Flipping the page, those 4 systems I just referred to are listed there on the left-hand side. Project we're just completing right now for the town of Berlin, and this has some relevance to what you're talking about, is Berlin had no water system, and that was limiting the town's growth. This is right up at exit 6 where the industrial park, the hospital, all the healthcare facilities, the airport, all individual wells, some of them contaminated, some poor water quality. Anything that was going to get built up there had to develop its own water supply, nursing homes, that type of thing, limiting the town. For 30 years, the town talked about building a water system. They had several studies done in the past that never went anywhere. We came on board about 5 years ago and started a process just like we're having tonight. We ended up moving ahead with a preliminary study, locating and developing 3 water supply wells, found funding for the project, designed the project, about $6 million. It's all built, it's all running, and already they've got so many people signed up for the water right now that we're looking for a 4th well. Just about before the project was finished completion, they've actually sold out their capacity. That's how much demand was holding the system back. The system's run perfectly since it was started. It's a real boon for the town. Years ago, I did the same thing in South Pownell, which is now Pownell Fire District number 2. And very similar to this community, the town of Chelsea, which is a project that I did some time ago, where Chelsea had a jury-rigged bunch of small diameter 2-inch galvanized piping from year to year and house to house and spring to spring. just a spaghetti mess. Judge Keyser actually owned one of the water systems, and the town decided they needed a whole village water system. Source, storage, water mains, hydrants, the whole thing. And we did that. Then some time ago, almost a similar project in what is now Rutland Town Fire District 1. So those are 4 projects that actually started from virtually there was nothing there and started a complete system. Then we look ahead in this little package right here, and here is a list of references and project descriptions of water projects that are kind of typical. These are major upgrades to existing municipal water systems. And in there, we've given you a description, and we've given you names and phone numbers of those clients. We welcome you to contact any or all of those for references. We have the privilege of working for most of these clients for decades when they need something done as far as water supply. There are some clients that I've worked for 40 years, and they're listed here. There's just basically just a list of some of the typical water projects we work on. And flipping ahead, there's some nice words from some of our clients, a list of water systems in the state that we've worked on, big long list, and some nice letters. But let's flip ahead to Jamaica, page 16. I thought I'd take the opportunity just to walk, and this may be things you've already gone over, but a project like this has a pretty set of steps so that you're proceeding in a logical way, minimizing your risk of going forward, but yet moving ahead very deliberately towards a goal until something sends you another direction or stops you. Obviously, step number 1 is to select a qualified engineering firm that has a hydrogeologist, because you're going to be joined at the hip with that firm probably for the next 3 or 4 years, and going to be working very closely. So we always recommend that you carefully select that consultant and not select them based on perhaps the first cost of a study or this or that or something else. You're going to have a big investment with this firm. Then the next step is to, obviously what you're talking about right now is a preliminary engineering study. Trying to scope out what is this thing going to look like, what's it going to cost, how much is it going to get, how can it get paid for. That's called a preliminary engineering study. That can be paid for through a planning loan that the state of Vermont offers. Rural development has some grant money to pay for preliminary engineering studies, but you are not eligible for that because of your median household income is a little too high. So I looked into that. But the state has which all our clients use, it's a 0% loan, it's not due for 5 years. And at that point, if you did nothing, you'd pay that back over year 5 to year 25, over a 20-year period at 0% interest. So most projects don't stop there. They get rolled into the project. But anyway, so preliminary engineering study for a project like this, it'll be a report that's probably that thick, and it will not only lay out what a water system could look like as far as where the water mains would be, what you'd use for water storage. It would also look into the hydrogeologist part of it, is where would the water supply come from? Do an area survey of where's the closest, most assured source of water of the quality and quantity that you want. And where would you look to obtain an easement for that property to then develop the supply? So it gets down to well targeting. We're getting into source targeting. That's a very important. When we're starting from scratch here, where's the water going to come from? The rest of it is hardware, water mains, storage, pumping, whatever. Once the preliminary engineering study and the well targeting study is done, then I believe the public needs to be involved every step of the way. Because eventually they're gonna vote on whether to do this or not. So I'm a firm believer that the public comes along with this whole, so I always like to say, once that study gets in, we come down, we present this study to the public, we answer all the questions there are. Next step is to work with a landowner, if it's not already town-owned property, which would be pretty unusual. Work with a landowner to get an option to purchase an easement on that property to develop the well. Then you can go back to the state and get another planning loan. They love loaning you money out at 0%. And Vermont is one of the only states that has this program. So you don't have to dig into your own pocket to do this immediately. Get another planning loan, and that planning loan will actually allow you to construct the well and test the well, do all the water quality. So you actually physically get an improvement. You actually get the well in place. Because you really can't move down the road to design a water system until you have a proven source. And the only way to get the proven source is to actually construct the thing. And we're doing that right now on a couple of projects where we're getting planning loans to actually construct water supply and test them and all that. Assuming that that's successful, then the time is to start lining up the construction funding for a year ahead, about a year ahead. So because all this is timing sensitive as far as getting on the priority list and getting in the funding cycle so that it all lines up for when you want to go to construction. So we start filling out the applications for the state water supply construction loan program. Simultaneously, we also fill out if the community is eligible for USDA rural development grant and loan money, which you are, and I'll get into that. So we play them both at the same time because we never know which one's going to be most advantageous until the end. Again, go back to the public, tell them what's going on. Then you go to another planning loan. Again, this is all, you haven't spent $1 yet out of pocket, but you're accumulating debt, obviously. You get a planning loan to design the system, prepare do all the permitting, the plans, the specifications, the construction contracts, all that kind of thing are all prepared, again, using planning loans. Now, the next step can happen here, or it could happen earlier, and that all depends on the community. That's when you go to the public for a bond vote. Now you know how much the project's going to cost, what the local share is going to be. We already have an idea back from the funding agencies as far as whether it's going to be state-funded, rural development funded, or a combination of both. So we've come back to you and said, this is how this is going to work. You know, a negative interest loan or a low interest loan, a grant of this much, your share is X dollars. Then you go for a bond vote for that amount of money. And then it becomes pretty routine. Put the project out to bid, construct the project, get it built. So some of this can be changed, the order a little bit, but that's pretty much what every community, those are the steps that every community follows. Now we flip ahead. Okay, where's Jamaica fall in this? As I just went through, funding really comes from two pots of money. People don't go to the Vermont Bond Bank any longer directly like they used to at one time because that money is just more expensive than these two options right here, which are right now flooded with money. The Vermont Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, generally it's a 20-year loan, interest rates anywhere between -3% and 3%, minimum and maximum. And that depends on median household income, and it depends on what the cost of water is going to be compared for the typical family. So there's a bunch of work in there in setting exactly what those terms are going to be. My guess would be that you would probably be in the 0% range. Probably not the negative, because I don't think your median household income is low enough to get into negatives. but I suspect you'll be very close to 0% for 20 years for long-term financing of the project. The other source of money, as I said, is USDA Rural Development. They have a loan and grant program. You fall in the category where you are eligible up to a 45% grant. That doesn't mean you're going to get 45%, but you're eligible up to, because you're considered an intermediate community. I'll explain what that means. And you can get interest right now. Your interest rate as an intermediate community is about 2.75% on the loan portion. So what we're doing is we're trying to balance, well, is a 0% loan from the state better, or a 30% grant, say, from rural development, and 2.75% loan. So you play those numbers back and forth. And it also depends on which one has the money to fund your project too. And sometimes we can actually use both programs to work with each other. So everything comes down to median household income with both those programs. Right now, I've just listed Jamaica's. The 2010 is what everybody's using right now, but they're going to be switching to the 2015 numbers probably next year. In both cases, you end up in the same place, because the state's median household income and your town's has increased in about the same ratio. So the good news is that you're eligible for the Rural Development Loan and Grant Program. That's really good news here. That tells me here. It also tells me that the state would expect you to pay 1% of the median household income for water. That's their kind of threshold where they start dropping the interest rate in order to keep that there. And that means we're talking about $450 to $550 per family. That's the average cost of water in the state right now. It's probably around $550 per family per year. So that feels good to me. So that's that. And then I've attached the funding agency's own kind of fact sheets and crib sheets for you to peruse at your leisure, keeping in mind that there's two programs here on page 20 and 21 that talk about grants, but your income is too high to apply for those. Those are for planning grants. Those are the ones we go to for poorer communities to do preliminary engineering studies. And so we can, I'm doing one right now for Wells River out of this program, but your income, you have to be less than 80% of the median household income to get either one of those. So you would be going to the state planning loan to pay for the preliminary engineering study. And you can read through those at your leisure. That's about that. That's a real overview of the steps necessary to do what you want to do. I'm excited a project like this because I love the opportunity to work with the community to create a utility that they don't have, because it's a real benefit to the community. I've just seen it happen so much when you've got a utility. And like I say, Berlin's was incredibly successful. Chelsea's was really successful. Pownell's was a disgusting, literally a pipe in a pond in the bottom of an abandoned gravel pit that turned green in the summertime. That was their water source. Unfiltered, undisinfected, frogs in the pipe deal. So I like working with communities. I think that the chances of getting a good groundwater source here is going to be terrific. I mean, obviously this valley has a lot of water in it, and I'd be hopeful to get a nice sand and gravel well here. But again, time will tell.
I have a quick question. A number of these things are referring to water and waste disposal grants and projects. What about water alone? or waste alone? I mean, is this
Oh,
a possibility or?
Oh, no, water and waste just means both programs. It's water or wastewater.
They're not married, we can do
No,
one
no, no,
or the other or
no,
both.
No, just the same program if you were building a sewer system, it'd be the same program as building a water system. Okay.
With some of the other engineers, they talked about doing first a feasibility study for which we would pay $7,000 to $10,000 before this preliminary engineering study that you're talking about. Is that a step that you include, or is that included in the preliminary engineering study? Or are they just breaking it down differently?
I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend that where I saw that it was such a tiny community that it was I'd go in there and say, I don't think you could ever afford to do this, that kind of thing. So you'd want to do a small study to show them that the challenges were really great. I don't see that you have those kind of challenges here.
I think the challenge is to bring the town around. So I think that's the advantage of having that preliminary study, because there's a lot of people who are skeptical or don't know or misinformation. So I think the advantage to have that preliminary feasibility study would help present this to the town or tell the town they don't want it.
And you could break this preliminary engineering study into two phases, where you do a first kind of a cost-effective. You really don't know what the cost is going to be until you get the final determination from the funding agencies, obviously. But we can determine pretty quickly where where you're going to lie, and then you just position yourself till you come into that position. And like I say, both rural development and the state have money available, and but the state has a priority list. Rural development is more on a first come, first served basis. But these projects, I mean, I've been through it enough, obviously with Berlin, with Chelsea, with most of the projects we work on, where there's a bond vote, is bringing the community along. People have to decide if they want a water system.
So the first thing they have to decide is if they want to spend a little bit of money to find out if they want to spend a lot of money.
That's right.
And that's why we're looking for that kind of feasibility study.
I mean, really, you could break the first part of this into something that would be, $5,000 or $6,000 or something like that, and get at the bulk of it.
Right.
Then we look for water supply and that type of thing. So that's part of sitting down here and find, what are you looking for, and what is your community looking for to help you, and then what can we provide you? Versus I come in here and say, this is what
We're not only looking for the physical aspect, we're looking for the philosophical aspect.
Absolutely.
Just for the heck of it, what is the population of Berlin or Chelsea?
Much bigger than us.
No, I'm asking him what it is.
Berlin, Chelsea is probably about your size. The village itself is probably about your size.
Yeah, but
Number of users, 100, probably around 100 connections, something like that. Berlin has, I can remember right, let's see, 600. Well, because they've got a lot of commercial, because they've got nursing homes, they have about 600 equivalent residential units, but they only have probably about 125 physical connections. But they have big users.
I was just curious what's closest to us.
Chelsea is probably pretty close. I think their average water demand is about 18,000 gallons a day. So pretty small system.
We have about 115.
Pretty typical size. Yeah. Chelsea's
I don't know where we're getting that number from.
Yeah,
I'm getting that number, but I can't tell you where.
Well, part of that is when we do that, we look at the various uses. I mean, certainly you might have a house with 4 apartments in it,
Right.
versus a single family house, versus a restaurant, versus this or that. So we have to take a look at what does that mean as far as how a system is paid for, that type of thing. That's part of what goes into it.
That number also came out of the report that we got in 2006.
They were like 150, weren't they?
No, about 115, I think it said.
Is that so the total of Jamaica or just downtown?
Downtown.
Yeah, just-
Village, they call it.
Just the village?
Right.
Yeah, because that's really what we're looking at, is
Sure.
the village
Sure,
only.
of course, just a,
Yeah.
just a contained area where it makes practical sense to
Right.
serve that. And then you get into, you want fire protection as part of that, most do. If you're gonna put in pipes in the ground, you put in enough storage so that you have some hydrants and some fire protection. You don't have to. There's
A lot of people have talked about that.
Yeah, and there's a payback there. A lot of properties receive significant insurance savings that helps pay for then the paying for the water system. It used to be that the insurance savings was so much that it almost paid for the bond for the water system. I don't find that anymore, but at one time, that was almost an equal pay-to-play kind of thing. So, anyway, like I say, we work with dozens of water systems from the very small, we're working with a system right now, East Thetford Water Company, 20-something users, almost an impossible system to try and make improvements because the users is such a small user base. And then we've worked in very large systems like the Virgin's Patton Water Treatment Plant that serves almost half of Madison County, or Rutland City's water filtration plant, which I designed. So we cover them all.
I saw a very interesting presentation on a meeting in Manchester a couple of months ago about the Rutland system.
Yeah, well, the Rutland system's fascinating. If you ever want a tour of it, please get a hold of me because it's a slow sand filter. It's old technology, it's entirely gravity fed, and the system you could shut the electricity off and the system would continue to operate because it's all by gravity and it's all biologic. Yes?
One of the things I'm finding confusing with your presentation, which is very interesting to listen to you and to read, is that we have really been looking for the preliminary investigation, and we have so far 2 bids for that. But we don't have a bid from you
We didn't
around that.
We didn't understand.
Probably didn't
Yeah,
understand.
we didn't understand that we
Yeah.
were to prepare a proposal
Yeah,
for you. We can,
I think that would, at least that's my
yeah,
interest,
Yeah.
is for you to do that. I'm only one person on
Okay.
this board.
no, that's
though.
fine.
So
We
I
didn't,
don't
we didn't
know
get the
if that's-
communication that you wanted a priced proposal from
Yeah.
us, so, but that's certainly something we
You
can.
said 5,000 or 6,000.
Something like, for the very
Right.
step, yeah, sure. And then when we get into the well investigations and all that stuff, then we get more up into the
Right.
probably 15 or 10 or 15 or something
I
like that.
think it would be important
Okay.
for you to
We
put
can get
that
that
on
right to you
paper.
in a couple of days, that'd be fine.
Okay, that would
And you
be,
send electronically all this, but I'll get there.
Okay, should I send it to,
Go ahead and send it to the town, or I'll give you my email, or Pam, send it to the town clerk,
okay,
and then we can get it to everybody.
okay, that's fine, we'll
Get
get
a
it.
hard copy to her as well,
Okay,
and then we'll have one in front of us.
okay.
Yeah, when I said earlier, when I introduced you, I mentioned the fact that we're trying to figure out the cost of finding out what the cost is going to be. That's exactly what we're looking for,
right.
Okay.
because we know it's gonna be expensive. We aren't too sure how expensive, but more importantly, the feasibility. We have a very small percentage of our population that will benefit directly from anything in downtown Jamaica. They're not gonna be able to pay for it themselves, I don't think, unless one wins the lottery. So we're trying to figure out how to afford to do things that are really, it's gonna be a tough sell.
Sure.
And I think Joel's exactly right on, we need to have something concrete in order to sell it.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. What was very interesting in Chelsea's case, I think Chelsea's again was probably 15 years ago or so. What was very interesting is Chelsea is a fairly poor community, low median household income, yet they really needed this water system. And initially, it was just the water use. This is the only, I'm not suggesting this because this is the only community that ever did this. But it was, what they did is, the original plan was that the users were gonna pay for the water system, pay for the indebtedness, operation and maintenance and capital repayment for the water system. The select board, a couple of years after that, said, this water system benefits the entire town. Having the village area, the courthouse, the school, town office, the stores, is a vibrant part of the town. And they actually, on their own, said that the town ought to pay for the debt for the water system, and they actually distributed the cost of on the tax base. It's the only community that's ever done that. And there were some ripples, but that's how they are paying for it. Like I said, most of our clients, the users, pay for the indebtedness of the water system.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about repeatedly in that circle of trying to get information is whether or not the remainder of the town is going to go along with a bond to provide water to a small portion, predicated on the idea that a strong downtown Jamaica benefits everybody. We understand that's an argument. Whether it's a sufficient argument or not, that's yet to be seen.
The first step, unlike what Chelsea did after the fact, when you go for a bond vote, we want to be very clear as to who's paying for this. Because obviously, if the decision is that the water users are going to pay for the indebtedness of the water system, then the people outside the water system have the right to vote for this, but they really have they're not going to get a bill for it. So we want to be very clear to those folks that if you think it's a good thing for the town, come and vote for it. You're not going to be paying for it. But if you think it's a good idea, come and vote for it. Unless you form a fire district, of course, and that's a whole other banana.
That's another possibility.
That's a whole other thing, where you form a user district, a fire district, and then it becomes a municipal entity, which happens. We've created a lot of fire districts, but we also have a lot of systems that are basically just like I just described, where it's a service area that is self-sustaining.
One question I have, do you guys have a defined scope for what it is you're looking for, or are you relying on us to give you our opinion on what we feel the scope should be? My concern is just making sure that you guys are getting apples and apples to what other engineers have provided for this. I didn't know if there was an actual defined scope, or if you're looking for us to define it based on how we would approach the project.
I would answer that question probably looking to you, because we have some geographical issues here. I mean, geography.
Sure.
Small little village, river on one side, mountains on the other. You got a flat spot here we drive on. And so how to predicate the good of, to predict the good of the town and how that's going to affect the good of the village, the whole town, it's a crapshoot. And we're not sure we know how to do it. So we're relying on experts to be able to say, oh, here's what you can expect within your geographic limitations. And how to move forward with that.
I mean, quite frankly, pretty quickly, I could estimate pretty reasonably close of what the cost of the water system would be for the town. You know, just by looking at the map layout, the topography, looking at the user base here, and almost kind of, we will prepare a proposal to do that kind of level 1 study for you.
That would be helpful.
And that'll get you halfway there.
That'll
as
at
far
least-
as getting the word out and getting the ground laid out.
That's going to be our biggest step.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Any other questions?
This certainly lays out a map that I have not seen before of exactly what comes after what comes.
It's very logical. Once you decide to start, it becomes a very logical process. And again, what we try and do is protect you from a risk point of view, and that's the purpose of working with the public, because ultimately it's their decision. I mean, we could talk about everything, we can lay it all out perfectly.
It's got to go to the public.
But it's got to go to the public, so the public has to come along every step of the way.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So,
Well, thank you very much.
you're very welcome.
The week is over.
Thank you, we'll get something to you right away.
And then she can distribute it to us when we get a chance.
We'll have that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question about what we're talking about?
Sure.
Is this something that could go on the town meeting warrant?
It may, at some point, if
To
we
ask
yeah,
before a feasibility study is done?
we can do that.
I'm just asking.
There's no reason we couldn't. I mean, it's the idea of, this is a major change to the town.
We're getting some information, but we could ask.
Yeah,
I'm just asking if that's possible.
yeah, we could certainly do that.
I think we have to do some of our homework.
We are.
with the
Yeah.
Community.
We can do homework.
Before we put it on the town.
Yeah.
Well, they
I
said
think
they
Andy's
would,
just saying, I think Andy was just saying for the feasibility study.
Yes.
Yeah.
Asking if the
That's
town
what I
even
meant,
wants to
yes.
pursue
Oh, you meant
the
just the
feasibility.
feasibility? Oh, I'm sorry.
Feasibility study.
I should have said that, thank you.
Oh,
Is that what you meant?
Yes,
I didn't
exactly
understand
what
that.
I meant.
I didn't understand that.
Oh, yeah, I thought we were going for, well, in theory,
I think that's a good idea.
there is
It's a
a,
good way to poll the town.
well,
Well,
this,
and then we could still,
sure.
you know,
Would we still go ahead with it if the town votes it down?
I don't know.
Here's,
I think it's fair to the town to ask if they want to spend
let me throw something out.
7
Andy.
to 10 grand on this feasibility study after listening to this last guy.
Yeah, listen, tell me what you think about this, it just popped in my head. We had, and we were going to talk about, Veda, we're going to have a town hearing for the town plan
Right.
coming up in a few weeks. We have to schedule it tonight. If we have a town hearing already scheduled on topic A, could we not marry topic B to it, this topic, and try to make get a little bit of sense of the community on that topic? It's just a
I
thought.
don't know if I'd want to do that, because it may have such an impact on the plan, of the plan going through. If-
I wouldn't want to, yeah.
I'm just sort of objecting about that, but I don't know what they.
If we don't know the feasibility, but then
Right.
how can we make an intelligent presentation at town meeting
Right.
about
That's
actually
my
doing the
concern
project?
too.
You mean town meeting or a town, this hearing you're talking about?
The town meeting, no.
And
If
they-
we don't have this feasibility and all this information at our hands when we have town meeting in March, how is the town gonna make a proper decision about whether they wanna do a water supply? I think the feasibility should be discussed with the town, whether we have a special meeting or a second session of this hearing meeting, so that the town can hear whether we should do the feasibility, and then they can make an intelligent vote in March about whether they want to go ahead with the water system.
So you think that adding, I mean, the reason I bring this up and I marry it to your presentation is because it matches somewhat what the planning committee's doing.
I
I mean, you're looking at the water.
I think it's a good thing to do at that meeting.
We have to have a presentation on the town plan.
I think it's a separate issue,
You think
It
it's
is
a separate?
it is a separate issue,
but
but the meeting can be part of that, or we can have a special meeting for the town. The town may or may not be tired of going to meetings. But that we can do a feasibility study before we have town meetings, so the town vote can mean something.
And they have to be educated
Right.
into what.
But
is
that's
really
not
the
what I
benefit.
asked though.
We're
All I asked was, could we put it on the warrant? Would the town like us to do a feasibility study? That's the only question
you're
I
talking
asked. I
taking
don't wanna be
these-
diving in this room, messing with the town plan or any of that. That's the only question I had.
I really want to remind you guys how a lot of the people who were against the garage, part of the thing that they hated was that the town spent money before asking the town if they wanted the garage. We spent money on engineering and stuff, and that was before anyone approved building the garage, and that was, some people, that was what they held on to. So I wouldn't want to make that same mistake where we spend money that no one authorized on something that people may
That's
not
right.
want.
So what we're talking about is having a meeting, because if we wait to authorize a feasibility study at the town meeting, will we then wait till the next town meeting to vote on whether we should build a water supply?
I'm just looking for a simple way to pull the town, if I can, or we could, about just spending the 7 to 10 to 15 or whatever he was talking about on this. I'm not against feasibility study, but I just said the same, I just asked the same question for the third time. That's all I wanted an answer to.
How do you feel about putting that question on the same night?
No.
You don't think that's a good idea? to put this
Personally,
together?
no. I mean, if the planning commission had a take on it, I'd listen to what they had to
the
say.
waters of
Okay,
getting
yeah,
through
fine.
the town plan. And
Then we could have a separate meeting about
Right.
this.
and I agree with you too, that
I
we
don't
shouldn't
think we
wait to
should
every
wait.
town meeting to have a vote. We should push
Right.
this a little quicker than this.
So we can have a meeting separate from the hearing, a different day.
So then following your plan, we would take these three plans, synopsize them, and prepare that for a meeting for the town sometime in either December or January.
Right,
Give us time to do something in March.
right.
And then present these three proposals, saying, here's what we've got. Do we want to go forward with that before we actually go forward with that?
Right.
I could live with that.
And then at the town meeting, we can say,
This is what you guys decided.
We have,
Yeah.
we have these feasibility studies, we've decided we think this is the best company. Let's put it on a town meeting day to vote for a town water supply. We've already voted for whether we should do the feasibility study.
And then take that vote and move forward in March.
Exactly.
I think that gives us
I think that's
January,
a good idea.
February. Wait a minute, time out. When does the warning have to go out?
End of January.
End of January?
January.
40 days before March, before the.
First.
Between 45 and 30.
So we review this stuff and have a meeting in December,
Mhm.
just move it up a little bit. You see, I'm running into a time thing with March. But if we have a meeting in December, we can present it to everybody, here's what we've got, make a move
And it
on.
has to go to the town report, which has to be prepared in time.
Exactly, that's what
And
we're
I
trying
think
to
that's
think,
the
it's 40
end of
days.
January, isn't it, when that goes in
Why-
to be printed?
Yeah.
Why can't we have this meeting about the feasibility study to be a select board meeting that's well publicized?
Well, if we move the meeting over the hall, we can do that.
Same.
Right, so we don't have to have an extra date, we just have to advise the members of the town.
On this date, we're gonna
We're
cover this.
gonna talk about this and we would like you to come because this is an important vote.
We can do that, I think, looking at December, early December. You wanna just do it? Lexi, you have been silent, what do you think?
I'm trying not to,
Not to think or not to speak?
not to speak.
Our first meeting in December is the 11th.
Is that when it is,
Yes.
of December?
Yeah, the second meeting is the 18th.
No, the second
I'm
would be
sorry.
Christmas.
25th.
Christmas, I think we can not have a meeting on Christmas. Is that okay, everybody? Thank you, moving on. But how does that sound to you, Andy? We have that meeting on the 11th, and combine it with the select board meeting.
I think that there'd be more voting members from the town at the town meeting. The people who come to the town meeting are the people who've come to vote, their vote. I mean, they may not, that, all I had was that one question. Sure. This is just like parlayed into a whole different thing. I'm against having another meeting, diving into all this information we have without a feasibility study being done, which is a question, does the town even want to do that? I understand what we're trying to do here, but, you know,
If you want the town to vote on it, then you have to have a
I know.
town, special town meeting.
or a special meeting, take me just a select board meeting.
Or if
So what would be your goal if we waited to authorize the feasibility study at town meeting in March? What would be your
Then
goal?
the select board could take further action from there, whether they voted for or
But you
against.
wouldn't implement a full certification of a water supply system without having a town vote on it. That's nothing the select board should do.
We could, well, that's what we're talking about doing by doing the study.
We're talking about doing a feasibility study the way you did for the septic system in 2006, which did not authorize a septic system. It authorized, just only a feasibility study was authorized and the town chose not to follow it.
So what I'm hearing in the middle then is on March of 18, we present to the town, in the town meeting, the option of choosing going forward with a feasibility study. If that is passed by the town, then in March of 19, we go to the town again with a plan for actually doing it.
Well, that's what I'm asking Andy.
No, we don't have to wait that long, just like we don't have to wait this long. I don't see what the big hurry is to get this, like, the feasibility study done so soon. And then when we can ask at the town meeting, and then take it from there.
That's okay, I can live with that. If we wait until
That's
the
all
town.
that's all I'm interested in.
All right.
The rest of you guys,
Well, the next step though, if they agree, if the town says, yeah, go with it, the
I
next.
don't see why we'd
meeting-
have to wait another whole year.
proceed with the.
Oh, you think the feasibility, well, because that would present the results of the feasibility study. We authorize it in March of 18, we then present the results of it and the costs in March of 19.
There was a lot of steps between the feasibility and then the bond vote for
Yeah.
the actual
There
water
was a
thing.
lot
There
of
was a
steps.
lot of steps that I think we could do over that year.
which is why I would not like it to say take 2 years just to get to the vote. Which is why if we're gonna have a separate special meeting, I think doing the feasibility study is less significant. So if we warn a meeting, whether it's at a select board meeting or a special meeting before town meeting, it's less significant than if we vote for the feasibility study at town meeting and then have a special meeting to vote on a $500,000, $1 million project at a special meeting rather than a town meeting. That's a more significant decision, and town meeting is a time to do more significant decisions.
So
Did I confuse you with that?
Me?
can you put that in a motion?
Well, I move then that we call a special meeting to vote on whether or not to go forward with a feasibility study.
Special meeting of the entire town.
The
Of the
select
entire
board.
town.
You want the select board to make that final, that vote? If you have to have the town people, you have to have a special town meeting, I
Right.
believe.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is making a special meeting, whether it be at a select board meeting, but warning it as a special meeting, or having a different date.
We get a semantic issue here. Warning it as a special town meeting or a special
Special
select
town
board
It
meeting.
has to be a special.
That's
Special town meeting.
That's what I'm
special
saying.
town
Well, the town, I agree with what he said, the town should be involved in every step of this.
So are we talking about like a ballot vote?
A ballot vote.
It's gonna cost some money too.
Well, it doesn't have to be an Australian ballot, it could be the same kind of vote we had when we had the meeting for Rescue Inc. We had a special meeting and the town people came and we had it in town hall.
That was informational meeting. The town people didn't really vote on it. They didn't come up and put their
They
ballot in
didn't.
or
They
anything
didn't.
like that.
But at town meeting, we have hand-raised votes.
Either that or ballot votes, depends.
Yeah,
I have to look into if we can
Better
even
check
do
into
that. I don't think we can.
we can do what?
There's a town clerk and a former town clerk in here too.
The answer is, the answer is.
Look at you guys.
Yeah.
Well, do you, have you, has
Warning for that.
right, has the town be in the paper, it's gotta be mailed out, it's gotta.
There's a lot.
Has the town voted to do public questions by Australian ballot? Or do you do your,
We do hand,
Floor.
you do
Floor
your
vote,
floor vote?
yeah.
Floor vote.
So then your floor vote town, and you have to do it with a floor vote. In order to
You
use,
need a special
in
meeting.
order to use an Australian ballot, you have to vote to use Australian ballot.
Right.
Okay.
So you'd have to have a
Well,
meeting.
we've used Australian ballots for bond votes before, but that's because
Bond votes are
votes.
specific.
Okay.
There's a different law that governs voting on bonds.
We don't have
Okay.
Australian ballot for our
Right.
town meetings.
Right, so it would be a.
What does it cost to do an Australian ballot?
Madam Clerk, can I ask you, what the motion is? Because we're
The
discussing.
motion was,
like
Joe
nothing,
moves to
right?
call a special town meeting to vote on whether or not to move forward with a feasibility study.
For a water supply project.
And I second that.
All right.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of Joel's motion to hold a special town meeting to vote on whether to go forward with the
Feasibility.
feasibility study, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, against, say nay.
I
No.
abstained.
Did you, I'm sorry, did you say no?
Abstained.
You abstained?
Mhm.
Paul, are you abstaining too? Or what?
Aye. Let's go forward with it. Timeout. Yeah, because an abstention counts as a negative, so it's 3 ayes. So we will go forward with this. Can I ask you to honcho that procedure?
Sure.
Thank you, and you can work with Pam and do whatever kind of legwork things I need to do. And then we will discuss where we go from there. Thank you. Thank you very much. Joel, do you want to go forward? You want to put this off for a while? I have you next, but we're running long.
I'm gonna forget everything, but I have a quick report. I'll read it fast like I did last time.
All right.
You don't have to race through it. I mean, you took the time to go up there and
Yeah.
print it and type it up. I think you can read it.
Okay, everybody will be hard.
Before I should introduce, he went to the VLC Town Fair and he's going to discuss his findings at that
The
location.
event was held on Wednesday and Thursday, October 4th and 5th in Killington. It was sponsored by VLCT, it was about VLCT. It included the VLCT annual meeting during which the VLCT's municipal legislative policy was discussed and adopted. I participated and I voted because the town elected me to do so. Some highlights, just, it's a thick book of regulations, but I just summarized it. VLCT opposes all unfunded mandated programs and preemption of municipal programs, a wide range of funding for incentives, working to create a new education finance system that reduces and reforms the property tax burden, reforming taxes to increase equity and simplicity, making changes to the VT open meeting law, increasing the requirement for posting minutes from 5 days to 10 business days, limiting mandatory application of 2014 amendment, establishing posting and penalty requirements to statutory and charter required public bodies, sustaining increased funding to all highway programs that affect local government, especially clean water initiatives and mandates, in light of 5 years of stable funding from the federal government to the Agency of Transportation. I attended a presentation by VTrans about grant programs for municipal roadway improvements that benefit water quality. I talked to the speaker, his name was Joel Perigo, and he would come to visit Jamaica to see if the problems on West Jamaica Road qualify for this program, and he thought it would. I gave you his number, Pam, I gave you his card. Also that VLCT has scholarship programs, we may know about them, I don't know, for training with the Better Road programs. In other words, training our road crews and whatever else. I went to a session on effective and legal municipal meetings by Sarah Jarvis, who is a staff attorney, and I'll give you some handouts from that. And also, she gave me something about, she gave me a sheet of their rules procedures, which is not the same as Robert's rules, which are very clear and specifically for municipalities, and I have a copy of that. So in other words, instead of using Robert's rules, which we really don't completely anyway, which is not recommended, VLCT has prepared a set of rules to run local meetings for small municipalities, which I thought was interesting. So I have all these handouts for you. And one other thing, I talked about wild parsnips, and I got a printout of that, which I'll give you, which didn't come from that. And a whole bunch of stuff, including who to call at VLCT if you get a flat tire.
If you get a, literally, if you get a flat tire?
So, and I'll give this all to you, and you can either read it or use it to wrap.
If you, let's stick it in a red box, we can all get a chance to read it as we drift through the office. Okay, excellent, thank you very much.
Yeah, and this pen is what I just
You're
said.
right up, I like it, thank you.
I need the extra. Oops. Good, thank you. The next item on the business is, we had a kind of a mix-up here. We have to have some, I had down originally, we were going to talk about the garage adjacent property owners. I didn't know you guys are coming tonight, so give me a second here.
Sure.
Veda has some things she needs to present about the town plan. We're getting a clock tick and some things that you sent. And I didn't get the letter till tonight. Because this afternoon, I didn't have it when I put this together.
I didn't get a chance to read.
So I did go through the town plan with the corrections that you've added to it, and I think they're all fine.
Okay.
I did do that, but I just sent it out to everybody electronically tonight, because it's
Oh,
like
I haven't even
75
seen it.
pages. Literally before the meeting, because I didn't get it until tonight.
Right.
I only sent it today, and you still have time.
Okay, so now we've got 15 days prior to the 13th of,
If that's
explain
when
that
you-
process to us.
If you can do it on your November 13th meeting, that would be ideal.
Okay, define it,
Vote to adopt.
vote to adopt. Now, we need to have a public hearing before then?
I think so.
You can have your hearing on November 13th that you would have to warn 15 days in advance, which I'm here to remind you now that
Okay.
you still have that time and you
You can do
So
that.
we don't need a separate meeting then for the town plan, for a town meeting.
Right, you can do it at
We
your.
can hold it here.
We can have it here with the regular,
Right,
we
right.
just
But you
add it
have
to the
to
agenda
add
for
it to
for
the
that night.
agenda.
How big are the changes? Are they, are they
There were
lengthy?
3 minor changes that we
Why
made.
couldn't we hear them right now?
Um,
Would it matter?
This is,
You should,
these are the changes right there.
I haven't had a
that.
chance
Oh, I
to
didn't get a
read.
chance to read it.
Yeah.
Just pass
I
this out,
haven't
I
had
know
a
you
chance
like
to
a hard
read.
copy.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
I mean, I didn't know how wordy they were, that's why I asked.
Oh,
This is all in the email that I gave you also. but-
you want to look at it right here?
No, not if it's gonna take a minute.
Well,
I was wondering how small they were.
They're just, they were very, I found them to be very appropriate. There was an issue, there seemed to be a theme of adding some updated
Yeah,
electronic
we got some more
stuff.
information about affordable housing, so we put that
Mhm.
in, that was important. And the other things were just kind of consistency, making sure the implementation section was consistent with the
Right.
chapters and the page numbers. There's like 2 page numbers we had to adjust and,
So really what you're asking us to do then is to take this and the one I've sent you electronically, compare it with the letters with the information. And then on the 13th
yes,
of November,
yep,
have that meeting where we adopt it.
yes.
Gives us time to look it all over, get all that stuff
Yes.
ready, and then we'll open that meeting for public concern, we'll advertise it as such.
Yes,
How's that sound to you guys?
good.
Pam, does that sound like it'll work for you?
Yeah.
Lexa?
pardon?
Is that okay with you? Yep. Okay, good, that's one of the things you put in there.
Yeah.
The other thing you put in there,
The other thing was kind of difficult issue, but we have one inactive member that we have, talked to many times, who's just unable to participate.
do we need to put that in an executive session? Is that a personnel issue?
I don't know.
No.
Is that something they can do?
They can do it, we need to do it.
Right, they can ask, you can ask to, if you want that member removed, or if he wanted to get removed on his own, and then it's up, we'll just
Well, the
approve.
4 active members would like to create a spot to have a 5th active member.
Mhm.
So we are at this point, we've tried many things, but at this point we are asking for that.
So we voted at our last meeting to have him removed. So now we're appealing to you, so to speak, to,
Yeah, because we appoint.
but also to appoint a new member.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Well, I guess
Yeah, I
to
don't-
create a space and then advertise it like we did last
I
time.
don't think it has to be an executive session for that.
Okay.
It's-
Well, we're not gonna name names outside of an executive session, so that.
No, we don't need to,
As long as we
if
understand.
they've already voted, and
We just need to ratify your vote.
Yeah,
Right,
so we just need to appoint someone.
so we just make a motion that we approve the,
We're asking to create a vacancy so that we can
I'll
have.
make a motion, request from the planning commission to make a vacancy available so that a 5th member can be appointed.
I'll second the motion.
Got that?
Under discussion, if we're talking about removing somebody, listen,
That's not damaging information, that would have to be in an executive session.
well, but we need to know what the information is.
Right.
We don't know that.
Yes, we can say that.
What I'm saying is, I'm not questioning them, but if this board is going to remove somebody from an appointed position, we need to have information.
Right, we need to have his name.
Getting that information.
That doesn't have to be an executive session, I'm almost certain of that.
I'm gonna say it does, because it's gonna be obvious who it is. I mean, there's 4 against 1, it's gonna be pretty clear.
we're
The public-
not against.
What I'm just trying to cover the point that we don't have, we as a board.
But we have to make certain this is not an illegal executive session.
It's a personnel matter, Steve.
I don't know if that's so.
We need tomorrow night's meeting to answer this question.
Okay, that's fair.
It's not urgent.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I just want to make sure we're going in the right direction. And I will tell you, the background that's clicking in the back of my head is something that we're gonna get briefs on, you all gonna get briefs on tonight. Lex and I have been dealing with for a long time. I just don't wanna get any more lawyers involved. I wanna do this as legally
Right.
pure as we possibly can. I wanna be fair to all concerned. I wanna do it up front as much as we can.
Well, can we wait till
Can we
tomorrow
put this
night?
off
Yeah,
to the next session?
yes.
To the next agenda?
Paul,
Ma'am.
if they could put something in writing for us and then we can
Sure.
vote on it then, and then,
Yeah.
Okay.
would that be all right?
Can I just ask one question about how your operating procedure? Say you did ask a member, are you still interested 3 times? Isn't that enough? Is there something in place like that in the planning commission guidelines, that they have something like that? That's all, I'm just curious, we don't have to
I don't
decide
I
it
think
now.
there's something in the state statutes about participating in a board.
Right.
And if you, so many sessions, it's 70%, or I don't know what the number is.
Excellent. If you can find that paragraph, put it in your letter, we're home free. If there's nothing like that and you need to comply, we get into the business of voted members.
I think there was something I sent to Leah regarding that quite a while ago.
Yeah, but
I can't remember what I said to you, but.
Yeah.
yeah, if somebody's, if this is a position of voted member, then we just can't arbitrarily toss them. So we've got to follow the procedures. Let's explore those procedures and then follow them. So, on the table, we have a motion.
No, I
I'll
don't think
withdraw
so.
that motion.
Never was-
Did you make the motion to
I
start
did,
with?
but we'll withdraw it. but I
We'll
don't think it was
withdraw the motion?
seconded. It
Yep.
was seconded, yeah,
Yeah, we had a second, we had a discussion. You'd like to withdraw it in lieu of voting on it?
yeah.
That works?
I agree to withdraw it.
Okay, excellent. We've withdrawn that one.
I'm sorry, I didn't know Joel seconded it.
All right. Yes, and there's another item in your list here. Get the draft, Roger Carvey's, an active member, on your list, I got this today. We're good.
We're good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And we will give you a little more lead time, and I'll make the details work out a little smoother next time. All right, number 9. We received a letter from the adjacent property owners of the town garage, and it turns out that the letter is, well, it's lovely. It has human beings behind it right now. Human beings. Would you like to say something?
Hello.
Hello. We have Enrique Chavez and Michael Abrams, who are the adjacent property owners to the new garage. Sent a letter asking some questions specifically. They're talking about assurance from the select board that this will have to do with the trees
Yes.
around the, and that you asked who will facilitate the tree planting plan.
Yes.
Does that represent your position, Cliff?
Yes.
Okay. So for some background, when we put well, I should let Alexa, because, do you want to talk about background?
The
Trees in the
garage committee
garage
was
committee.
disbanded anyway.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's all done, so now it lies upon the select board, and so the select board will make sure that what was in the easement that we signed for, that we will continue to do what we said we would do.
Okay.
So you can be assured of that.
Okay. So we have some follow-up questions.
Yes.
Keith thought it'd be the best idea to plant those trees in the spring, but I agree.
Mhm.
But Keith is going to be very busy in the spring, putting the roads back together. And I know he's busy now, but I think would benefit the trees if the holes were dug now and the topsoil were put in the holes now. So as soon as spring comes and before those trees become alive, we can plant them in the spring. And I think that would be the best scenario for the tree growth, rather than waiting. Our feeling is we wouldn't want to wait too long in the spring.
Right, all right, let me check with Keith to
Yes.
see what his schedule is, and then he can work
Yes.
with doing that and where the trees are gonna be planted.
Yes. So we've already staked out where the trees
Right,
go
I
with
saw
these.
them, I'd like
Yes.
to go back and meet with you
Yes.
folks. I've got some questions on where the stakes are,
Yes.
so that I'd like to, make sure that we're doing it the right way,
Mhm.
if that's all right with you. So I will
Oh,
give you
sure,
a call
yes.
and let you know when I can meet both of you there and do it. That's all right?
Yes, that would be good.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you very much. Alexa will meet you guys.
And Keith too, he'll come.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to get all the players looking at each other and kind of make it work, because doing it by email and phone calls is
And
just.
Lou.
And Lou, who's the memory bank for me. All right, thank you very much. The next item I have is, we had received a letter from a gentleman named David Lamson back in September, offering to, good night, gentlemen, offering to donate his property to the town. And we brought it up in a meeting, and there were some questions about the details, and you'd asked to get some more information. So we got some more information. We got the lister sheets. Basically, the homestead value is 82.5. There is interesting that in the lister's card, or the lister's package, there's 2 photographs of a building. Yet all the paperwork said there are no structures on there. So we're not exactly sure what that means, except all the lister stuff said there's no structures on there at all. So we
What
don't
does
know.
one of our listers have to say?
Yeah, we looked at that package, and it was attached to a lister card of 1990. So we suspect that those 2 buildings, if they were indeed there, have been removed. We don't know for sure, but that's our figuring. I mean, they certainly are attached to, they're in the file, but they're attached to the 1990 lister card.
One was 91 and 90.
What?
One was at 90 and one was 91.
1990 approximately, lister card, an old lister card.
Are taxes being paid on this now?
Yes.
Are they being paid based on buildings?
No. The lister card only lists land.
So nobody lives there.
Correct.
We don't know that.
Well, we don't know for sure.
Ah.
I don't think
Where is
so.
the land? Where is it?
It's on Route 30, just this side of, you know where the gentleman named Sicko's got a guitar hanging?
Oh, yeah.
That part, it's just this side of that.
Great reference point, because there's no other way to explain it.
It really is up the road.
Just drive up.
So how big is the property?
3 acres, 3.5, I think.
What's wrong with it?
Well,
I've heard it's rather steep.
it's
Yeah.
pretty steep from the road. If you look at it, it's like,
Completely right down to the road?
I haven't looked at it.
well, if you look at the road, it goes like this, down and then up. But that's not typical.
Somebody may want it who's willing to pay taxes on it.
Well, he's already has a taxpayer. The question is, do we wish to become?
That's what I'm saying. If we take it, we pay the taxes.
You don't
Exactly.
get any taxes,
I mean,
right?
that's right.
We have some lister's opinion, although it's not gonna have, to make me decide one way or the other, but
Well,
what kind of property?
my opinion is if you do this for one taxpayer, others are going to expect it.
Okay.
And
Right.
just because they want to get rid of, because they can't sell it, they don't want to have to pay taxes. I would recommend to that person to try to find a abutter who might be interested in adding that property to their land.
Because how many property owners in Mountain Acres are in the same situation?
It does seem to be an awkward precedent. If, on the other hand, there was a good well,
But it's
That could
too
then
far
pump.
out of the village. Think of the cost to get the water from here to the village.
some of it's downhill.
The town already owns a school site that's up the hill.
We have a representative from the school site. You have a well?
Good old gravity.
So I would,
Go west.
I would entertain some directions on how I should respond to this gentleman.
Thanks, but no time.
Can we?
I make a motion, we graciously
Decline.
decline the
I
offer.
second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of gracefully declining? Aye. Any non-graceful decliners? Any negative, any no's?
Yeah, right.
I have three.
Graciously decline.
Graciously, what did I say?
I put graciously.
As opposed to gracefully?
Graciously.
Graciously. Ah, the motion carries, I'm sure eventually we'll get to that point. All right, I'm gonna write down decline, and you can tell me how to spell graciously later.
You don't have to spell it, she's gonna spell it.
That's the right thing to say, yes. Okay, number 11 on our meeting discussion list of things to do. Discuss and decide on pursuing or not the latest net metering project. Here's the deal. We have talked to this gentleman, and he has been absolutely, he's bent over backwards over and over again. He's come a couple of times, he's been in lots and lots of communication with us. We are now at a position where all the net metering projects that he's presented to us, and now we've missed those boats. they closed up or whatever. He's now lining up for a new famed landfill array, and he was just issued a 45-day notice to them, one direction or another. And he wants to know if we want to be the anchor off-taker for this new famed landfill array. It does not have the same financial benefits as the previous ones. For whatever it's worth, I really feel guilty not responding to this guy, and I've explained to him the process, and he's been very nice, very polite, very nice guy. Do we as a select board, are we as a select board interested in pursuing this further?
I don't think some of the board members were too enthused about the better deal, so I mean, the first offer,
There's no,
we missed out on that, and now
These are less good.
the only advantage is marketing for us.
Mm.
There's no great financial benefit.
No, I remember what it was.
Financially, we're not gonna benefit by it.
Yeah.
We were hesitant about that,
It's
so
nice-
I
It's
wouldn't think
nice to
we-
say that we support solar energy, so that would be what we'd be doing if we signed on to it.
Let's just have Pam put it on the town logo, just saying we support solar energy, it's a lot cheaper.
But
Morally,
in
we support
your, in the email that I got from you, you talked about a local solar array on a closed landfill site.
I got a letter from, escapes me who it is. Oh, no, I beg your pardon. It was from, obviously from Dr.
him.
Lima.
It was from him.
And he was asking if we had a closed landfill.
Right.
And so he was talking about eventually, if we had room on our closed landfill, to put a solar array. Remember, I think I said that out to everybody.
We don't.
I'm looking at our little plot of dirt up there, and I'm not entirely sure it could sustain more than 2 or 3 arrays.
Does he want to see it?
Exactly right.
Well, certainly, I'll come up and take a
But
look.
that would be a separate issue.
I make a motion, we do not pursue the latest net metering
Is this
project.
another graceful?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, you didn't, I know.
I'll second that.
I will be graceful. I have a second. Is there any further discussion on the issue of not pursuing the net metering at this time? Hearing none, all in favor say aye to not pursue.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I will send a letter gracefully or graciously, one of those two.
Oh,
Both of them, I'll do both of them to explain to him, because he's been a nice guy, he's been very cooperative, I really
Not
feel
going
that.
to live that one down.
All right, so we'll put down decline. Okay, now I had a couple other items in here, but they're mostly communication things, and I had some real people sitting in the audience. So, let me see here. Let's jump to public concern since we have actual public. Are we actually acting as public, or are you acting as
Audience.
unpublic? There's something that you had sent, and I don't have it on here, but since you're here, and Pam and I talked. Did you talk, or who did I talk?
Yes, we talked.
Absolutely.
This is.
And I got a nice email.
Yeah.
So
I
anyway.
wrote back to Pat,
All right, so
so I want
it
to.
sounds like, go ahead and talk to what we talked about.
Okay, well, Pat,
So,
Before we go, hold on a second, because people who are on the other side of that lens over there don't have a clue what we're talking about.
we're talking about the Jamaica Town Hall and different things with that, where the Jamaica Community Arts Council put on different concerts and different things this summer, and things have gone well. And part of our thing is to maintain the building and to be the advocate for that beautiful historic building. And so to that end, I sent a list of things, maintenance-wise, to Pam. And
That should be coming to me.
okay.
I am the person that is the liaison.
There you go.
And actually, I have a whole list that comes from the person in Bennington, who is our preservation. And I've
I'd
talked
love
to
to see
Tom
that
about
list, I would
that.
actually like to
Yes.
see that list.
And I have an email to her.
Okay.
Well, the way the conversation evolved after we got the letter was that we weren't going to be prepared to do anything with it tonight because we had a full schedule.
Yeah.
But and you understand how that works, so
I do.
we're going to get, and so you guys can now have time to work together.
I need to sit down with you guys, and we have not had that opportunity.
Yeah, because I guess it was we were asked to be on a committee.
Right.
Correct.
And we hadn't heard anything from you, so we took
Well,
the initiative.
I've been in touch with Tom.
We
Okay.
talked a little bit,
Yes.
part of our concern too is access to the town hall. The lockbox is broken on the town hall. We're having to come to town hall, you know, we do shows on the weekends, and if it's Friday and the town hall's closed, you know, we have to get the key, and Karen gets the key, and then we have to bring it back. And we're hoping there's some way that we can get a key or get access to that, or we can get that lockbox fixed, so that I set up for the shows midweek on a Wednesday at noon, you know, I go over there and set things up. And, you know, I'm very diligent about locking it back up, making sure that, you know, everything's locked up when I leave.
Do we have, is that lockbox something that's a new breaker?
The lockbox is broken. It got jammed.
It works sometimes. You can
Yeah.
play with it for an hour and it.
I tried for a good 20 minutes
Yeah.
and couldn't get it. So
And
I was
I
gonna get a
tried
hammer and do it that way, but I don't
You
know.
did.
No,
Now, the
no,
other- the
that
other
was
thing-
my next step.
The other thing is David Mink is leaving town, as you know, he's moving to Colorado. He has a key. We were
Well, we
wondering.
changed the lock since he got a key.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Is he sure about that? I think he has a good key.
No, when did we last open it?
When did you change the locks?
Like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay, then maybe not then.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, because we were down to 2 keys.
Okay.
He had one and there was
Okay.
one in the lockbox
Okay.
and that was dangerous, especially considering the lockbox can jam. So we have been meaning to change the locks because we wanted a
Okay.
lock that was easy to make duplicate keys. That one we had to pay like $100 for a key and drive to Rutland to get it. So we got 4 keys.
I have one.
Judy has one. There's one locked in the lockbox, and then there's 2 here at the office for people to sign out.
Okay.
Which we were going to, I think Judy and I talked about it, give you, Tom, one to
Okay.
keep long term.
That's fine.
So you are the Community Arts Council member with the key all the time,
Perfect.
and then if another member needs the key, they contact you.
For me, I'm moving to town in a week, so I'll be in town.
Right.
after the-
And then we still have one here at the office for like when
the
the elevator person comes to test the elevator, like today, and we have a key to give him, and then, but hopefully we can.
Why don't you guys just allocate a couple of dollars to fix the lockbox?
That's a good question.
We'll do that.
He just
Well, it's
broke- he
$100,
just broke.
$25. I mean, a new lockbox is $25.
Is that why you're moving there? Because you're taking over the legacy?
Exactly, yeah. I took
So-
David's
So
role.
another issue with the lockbox was that it was hard to keep the code secure.
Yes.
The lockbox isn't so that everyone in town can go over and get into the town hall, because that's not safe. So that was another issue with the lockbox. We weren't that sad that it broke because everyone knew the code anyway.
And there is equipment in there, there's a
Right,
sound system
right.
in there, I mean, we don't necessarily want people going in and
So
out.
it's not to keep you guys out, it's to
I
keep,
understand.
you know, someone who says, oh, that's a cool building, can I go see it? And someone gives them the code and they.
So the question I
steal
have for
their
you, the committee that's actually doing stuff, is that gonna work for you?
Yes.
Fine.
My question is, when can we get a key?
Tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. Pat, yes, there you go.
Look at how fast that was.
Sorry, I didn't feel secure in putting it in the mailbox.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I looked and I
Thank you
said,
very much, guys.
well, that worked out really well.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Pam and I have been working on it to make sure, because one of the issues has been that the combination has been well known. And
That's
there's,
true.
as you say, there's very expensive equipment in there.
And I would recommend right now the code is simple to pick, even though the box is broken, when we get a new box, we should change it to something that's a little different than the current one. That's my
1, 2, 3, 4, huh?
1, 2, 3.
Come on.
So just to reiterate your email, Pam.
Yeah.
So if it's items are below $500, say with that list of things, we should just say a new lockbox is $25 from whatever hardware store. If it's over $500, we would need a quote from 3 different providers.
Yeah, verbal or written.
Right. Except you need to come to me with that. That's
And
why
we will.
we've
As-
got to meet, and that's where it's going.
Okay.
As is no written.
And not on your own,
So
but
do,
with me.
Judy, let us know when we can meet, because
Yeah.
we're available and we'll
Okay.
meet with you, and if we need to do a
We'll
walkthrough
set one up
of the
tonight.
building,
Okay.
perfect.
and who else is on that committee?
Only the 2 of you currently.
Okay.
So the 3 of us then.
No.
You
No,
and
the red-
you.
Oh, yes, the 3
You
of
and
us.
Okay,
All right, then.
Thank you.
perfect.
Did you get all that? Because I didn't.
There was no more sheets.
All right.
The lockbox quandrum.
The last thing debate is still here for this. Date for the town plan hearing is going to be the 13th of November.
Don't forget Judy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Don't forget Judy had something too.
Yes, hang on a second, I'm
Just
just,
same for the town plan, right?
yes, yeah.
So,
13 November, okay.
select board meeting.
Select board meeting, and that will be advertised profusely, that it will be for the public.
I think it has to be in the newspaper too.
Okay.
Once again, thank you very much for that town plan, it's huge, and it's a lot of work, and you did a great job.
Yes, good job.
All right, Judy,
Yes.
Wyndham Solid Waste Management District has made a time for us to take toxic hazardous waste to the area down on, what is the
Ferry
name
Road?
is
Old
it?
Ferry
Yeah,
Road.
Ferris, Old Ferry Road, which is where they're located. And this is the whole listing of toxic waste. We here on our transfer station are not allowed to take any of these things. And there are maybe 20 items, and I'll just quickly go through. Brake fluid, herbicides, mothballs, you know, it goes from that kind of thing. Motor oil, along with other things, paint. All of these things are toxic, and it's here, and I don't know, do we have a list of this on the bulletin board?
We will now.
Okay.
Paul brought
And
that
it
back.
is going to
Said
be
thank you.
Saturday, November the 4th, between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. You do not have to pay for any of the toxic wastes. You do have to pay $5 for your car or a household.
Right.
So it really is a good way to get rid of a lot of stuff that you have around the house. And I'm sure, like our house, it's piling up because you know you can't take it to the transfer station. So be sure to take it down and
So,
have that.
so the residents need to drive it down to Rattle Road.
Right.
It's
Yes,
not gonna be like take it to the transfer station,
No.
collect it and take it down.
we can't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Got it.
There is another place, Wilmington is doing it, but I don't know what the date is for Wilmington.
I've seen like Floodbrook does that. Floodbrook School will have a day when they say, we're collecting everything, and then they bring it down.
Uh-huh.
They used to float around, we've had them at, weren't they at our transfer station once?
I don't remember to tell you the truth.
It's a paint collection.
Might have, but
And
right
just,
now.
is it specific about paint? Does it say all paints? It's really hard to get rid of latex paint.
You can
Let's
bring
see,
it,
yes, it did have like paint products, latex,
Okay.
acrylic,
There's a
water-based,
maximum.
alkali.
There's what?
There's a maximum that you can bring.
Yes, a maximum
Used to be they didn't want to take that, that's what I was
10.
asking.
you can take,
A Wyndham Solid Waste, you can take 10 cans.
you can bring 5 cans a day as an individual to Miles.
Yes,
Probably to
exactly right.
WW as well.
I don't think
Yes.
WW's doing it, but sure.
But-
Lions does.
But there has to be paint in the can.
It has to be fluid and labeled,
yes.
Right.
yes.
So you can't drink down
And
dry
we-
paint can?
We
No,
have,
you can't bring dried paint,
No.
but you can throw
That
them.
can still go to the.
you can
So I have to go to the spare
actually,
tree.
you can take the dry cans and put them in the transfer station.
Right,
But
dry
any
can.
fluid that is
I got it,
in,
okay.
you cannot throw those away in the transfer station.
You can put kitty litter in those cans.
okay, anything else?
Yes, one other thing. We are having a big major change for the bottles and cans that are that have a disposable amount of money on it. And what's happening is that D&K is no longer doing that at the end of this month. And that is where we at the transfer station take all the bottles and cans that are donated, and it goes to the different 501c3 nonprofit organizations within the community. So we either have to take these cans now to Londonderry, and I'm working with Wardsboro people. So I'm hoping that we are people who are picking them up and taking all of the cans and bottles, like the school situation, the rec group, we're doing it also, if they will be so kind to now take it to Wardsboro when that opens.
And
Where is
if
it-
they
where is it
don't
open?
want to do that,
Where is it open?
where
Where's
it
it
will
from?
be going is right at the country store. They're
Okay.
setting up a whole area at the country store, but it won't be ready until, I think, mid-November.
As a representative of the rec committee, I would say we can do that. I know
Oh,
Bob
great.
Johnson's been doing it.
Yes, I know, he
But I
has.
have, Caroline Pearson is in charge now. I've sort of backed out of that because I was in charge for a long time.
Okay.
But I can talk with her and I can talk with Bob and we can work out that we'll get that. 'Cause
That would be
that's a
great.
good revenue source for us.
Yeah,
and-
because it is, I mean, sometimes,
Couple $100
you'll
bucks, I
get a
think,
couple
yeah,
$100
$250
out of
something.
a pickup, so it's well worthwhile.
Do the,
But it does create an issue that it's not close in town anymore.
do the supermarkets, Clark's or?
Some do, some don't.
Hanford does, but you gotta put them in one at a
Yeah,
time.
one at a time.
Clark's, maybe.
There's also one in West Pratt down at this building where they have a big operation there. But that's a height.
So, well, that's good to hear. I'm glad that you
Okay.
spoke up, Tom.
Yeah,
because my
I would
concern
talk with
is-
the other rec committee to make sure that.
Yeah, my concern has been that the different representatives from the 501c3s will not go the distance.
Good
So
point.
that's workable. Okay,
All
that's
right.
it.
Thank you, thank you. I take a motion to an executive session.
Wanna make a motion?
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second?
Second.
Second. All right, we'll call it 44. We'll go into executive session. There will not be any decisions made, so we will not have to have the camera afterwards. Okay?